All right, we're back with Zach and with Gabby. One of the things I absolutely have to get in here was a big moment between Julian Castro and between Mayor Pete about the nature of politics and what that debate was all about. Let's take a listen.
This reminds everybody of what they cannot stand about Washington. Scoring points against each other, poking at each other, and telling each other that you're my plan, your plan. Look, we all
that's
have
called a Democratic
visions,
primary election. That's called an election. That's an election. You know, this is what we're here for. It's an election.
I mean, that was quite a moment. I don't think he's wrong, Zach. I mean, he's like, listen, this isn't a kumbaya moment. This is a big slog fight to determine who is going to take on Donald Trump in the future of a major party in America. It's not supposed to be a love fest. What do you think?
Well, I could see it both ways. I mean, there's actually a bumper sticker I saw in Seattle that says "The Democrat 2020," which I totally support that bumper sticker, by the way. And so I think most of the Democratic voters, the one thing that unites, they just want to beat Trump. And so I think that they actually, in Mayor Pete was being his authentic self. That's exactly who he is as a person. I also think that Julian Castro was also being his authentic self in that sense, and people appreciated, I think, both components of that.
Yeah, but if you're a Democratic primary voter and you're watching what Mayor Pete just said, then are you really comfortable thinking that that guy could go up against Donald Trump in a general election debate? If he doesn't want to engage in tough questions and tough responses, I mean, I cannot see somebody like that prepared to take on President Trump.
Kamala Harris shot up in the polls because she took on Joe Biden and because people could imagine her then taking on Donald Trump on the stage. So Pete is actually just has it completely backwards. Like, people are actually excited when they see somebody willing to fight. And then you notice Pete disappeared for a long time after that smackdown. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah, I think it was brutal, and I think that this is one of these main things, which is that so many of these Democratic these debates have not featured moments where the candidates are going after each other. It's so different from 2016 with the open Republican primary, which really was kind of an all-out war. Now, granted, that's what the base of the Republican Party wanted in 2016. But to Ryan's point, sure, there's a lot of people, they're very appreciative of President Obama, they very much like all of the candidates and Joe Biden, but they do want to see some fierce action on behalf of whoever they nominate. Zach, how does, I think Biden in particular, how is he going to thread the needle on this? Because he also had a difficult time. He appeared a little bit vacillating when he was trying to go after. The only person he did a decent job, I think, going after was Bernie Sanders last night.
Well, I think he has the ultimate traits for a president, the hard head and soft heart component, as some University of Massachusetts professor once said. But I think that, to Gabby's point, the fact that he's actually been consistently not apologizing, people actually view that as strength. The fact that he kind of has this Scranton-esque kind of component. I don't think there's a question of whether he can take him on toe-to-toe. There's other questions that people are raising about him, but not that specifically. I also think this is one of the challenges for Senator Booker, is that he's also come out as sort of a hope and change kind of guy. And even though he could get into a street fight, realistically, his rhetoric hasn't. And I think it's one of the issues that he struggled with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what did you think? One interesting thing, Gabby, what do you think Bernie was saying to Biden? Because I noticed that he was whispering to him when Julian Castro went after him. They had a couple of moments there where they're like Senate colleagues, you know, just like whispering in each other's ears.
I actually missed that. I can only imagine.
Maybe give me a lozenge.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, turn that mic up. I was like, I want to hear this.
You know, one of the moments that stood out to me most was when Biden turned to Bernie and said, "For a socialist, you have quite a lot of confidence in corporate America," which that was what people want to see from Joe Biden. I mean, for every skeptic in the Democratic Party who can't see him taking on Donald Trump or is worried that he might be too old, might be too outdated, might have policy ideas that are just not appealing in the current moment, that was something that I think resonated with a lot of people in the audience. And I would expect that his team is going to say, we want to see more of that in the next debate.
Okay, winners and losers. Who did you think? Who are the two winners and the two losers? What do you think, Zach?
Well, no poll will change, but the two winners were probably O'Rourke and then somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that the losers were most likely, unfortunately, Kamala Harris. I don't think was able to break any kind of ground. As same thing with Senator Booker, even though he actually had a good debate. I don't think he was able to break any new ground.
What do you think, Gabby?
I think Biden is a winner.
Yeah.
And I think I would have to say that that moment with O'Rourke was probably going to give him some type of minor boost in the polls.
At least money.
Castro terrible job last night. I mean,
Really?
I genuinely think that moment with Biden is going to destroy his campaign. And I would also say that Andrew Yang just disappointed last night.
Oh, really? Okay. All right, Ryan, what did you think?
Well, I thought Castro was both a winner and a loser. I think he's a loser in the sense that he cut off the establishment lane for himself. But he's, I think, clearly banking that that's not the lane that's going to come out on top in this election. And I thought Biden is a loser in this sense, that what happened between him and Castro gives the media permission structure to start talking about his mental decline in a way that they didn't have before. And he can either rebut it by showing some mental acuity, or he can continue to flail and have the spotlight on that and have voters, wait, is he really electable if he can't complete sentences or paragraphs?
That's the ever-present question with him. In terms of winners and losers, I think that Biden definitely did hold ground. It was one of these things where it's like, as long as he doesn't catastrophically lose, then it's one of those things where I think broadly, he's always going to give that base, which is already with him, the excuse in order to stick with him. I thought Senator Warren did a pretty decent job, though. She did kind of disappear from the stage for almost like 30 minutes while all of that was going on. In terms of losers, I mean, Amy Klobuchar what was that?
I forgot she was on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't predict a strong future for her and many of these.
Whatever staffer wrote those jokes is ducking.
Right. I mean, but the biggest one in my estimation was Kamala Harris. I talked about this earlier. But these prepackaged lines, the vacillation on so many of these politics, I think she's just absolutely sunk. And it is so crazy because she had a huge open. I mean, that Oakland rally, it was massive. I know that the Trump campaign in particular was really had their razor eye on that. And then, just after the Biden moment, it really looked like this would happen. And it was just so planned and poll tested and all of that.
And poor Kamala, she told a canned and planned yes we can joke to Biden. And poor Kamala, Biden didn't get it. Yes, we can. What's the?
Yeah, he's like, what was that?
What's that reference?
I think was.
Yes, we can. And so she's there giggling and doesn't have him giggling. It was like, oh man, you can't do stuff from 10 years ago with Joe Biden.
Oh yeah, that's also brutal. And then the Wizard of Oz joke. I don't know if you guys know that.
That was extremely uncomfortable. Yeah. And
right.
George Stephanopoulos is clearly a small man behind the curtain.
Yes, I was like...
I feel like he felt equally as uncomfortable as everybody watching.
He was like, I'm the small man behind the desk, so what's good? All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next week on Rising, we might have focused all on the 2020 presidential candidates today, but next week we turn to the Senate. We speak with candidates in Georgia and Colorado about their races. Ryan, thank you so much for filling in for Crystal. And the rest of you, don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube. We'll be at you next week.